Helen was married to Henry, a loving and hardworking man who adored her deeply. They live in a big house filled with beautiful things, cars in the hallway, and everything anyone could dream of. They were blessed with 2 beautiful children, and Helen was excited about the birth of their 3rd child. However, life was not perfect. Helen's biggest challenge was her mother-in-law, Mama, who lived with them. Mama was a proud woman who had never accepted Helen into the family. From the day Henry brought Helen home, Henry's mother had made it clear that she didn't approve of their marriage. She wanted her son to marry Melody, the daughter of a wealthy family, but Henry chose Helen, a simple girl from a humble background. Whenever Henry was home, his mother pretended to be sweet, kind and loving to Helen, always smiling and acting like a lovely mother-in-law. But the moment Henry traveled for work, Mama's true colors showed. She would criticize Helen, calling her a gold digger and making her feel worthless. "You don't deserve my son," she would often say. "You are just a low-class girl who got lucky." One afternoon, Helen was alone in the house with Mama. The maid, Flora, had gone to drop off some clothes at the drying cleaner, and the gatekeeper was on leave. Helen's labor pain began. She knew the baby was coming. The pain became so intense, but she tried to stay calm. She went to the living room where Mama was. Mama was sitting comfortably, watching her favorite TV show and sipping a glass of wine. "Mommy, please help me, I'm in pain," Helen pleaded as she held her belly, trying to stay on her feet. Mama glanced at her quickly, sipping her wine slowly. "Are you insane? Don't you ever call me mommy again. I am not your mother. My son made a mistake marrying a low-class girl like you," she said. She turned her attention back to the TV completely, ignoring Helen, who was seriously in labor pain. Helen's eyes filled with tears as she fell to the ground. She was desperate and scared, but Mama didn't care. She crawled to her room, fighting through the pain, and managed to grab her phone. She called Flora, the maid, who quickly rushed back home and found Helen in distress. Flora tried to help, but there was another problem. There were 5 cars in the compound, but none of them could drive. Mama was the only one who knew how to drive, but she refused to help. Without wasting time, Flora ordered a taxi and helped Helen into the car. They rushed to the hospital, and soon after, Helen gave birth to a healthy baby boy. But the pain of what had happened with Mama stayed with her. She couldn't believe that the woman who was supposed to care for her will let her suffer like this. Henry, who was abroad on a business trip, was tripped when he heard the news of the baby's arrival. He called Helen, his voice filled with excitement. "I'm so proud of you, my love. I wish I could have been there," he said. Helen smiled weakly, but she didn't tell him what had happened with his mother. She didn't want to cause trouble, and she loved Henry too much to make him choose between her and his mother. As they turned into weeks, Mama's attitude did not change. She continued to treat Helen badly when Henry wasn't around, insulting her and making her feel like she didn't belong. Helen tried her best to win Mama's love. She cooked her favorite meal, brought her gifts, and tried to be respectful at all times. But nothing worked. Mama's heart was cold and her hatred only grew deeper. One evening, Henry returned from his trip and noticed that Helen was unusually quiet. She seemed tired and sad, but whenever he asked what was wrong, she just smiled and said, "I'm fine, my dear." Henry loved Helen deeply, but he couldn't see the pain she was hiding. He believed that everything was perfect between his wife and his mother, just like Mama pretended when he was around. Helen continued to endure the silent suffering. She didn't want to be seen as a troublemaker or to be tagged as ungrateful. Even after having 3 children, Mama Distin never wavered. She would say hurtful things like, "Trap my son with these children, and you are lucky he loves you, otherwise you will be nothing." Her heart broke every time, but she held on to her love for Henry and her children. One morning, Helen woke up early to prepare breakfast for her children. As she was making the food, Mama walked into the kitchen and began inspecting the pot. "Helen, what are you cooking?" Mama asked, peeping into the bourbon pot. "Good morning, Mama. I'm making porridge for breakfast," Helen replied with a smile. Mama frowned. "No meat? Why don't you ever put meat in food? Are you trying to starve me? Are you trying to starve me and my children? You are such a low life. Even after marrying into a wealthy home, you still can't behave like a wealthy woman." Helen tried to explain to her mother-in-law that the meat in the freezer was finished and they have ordered some more. But before she could finish, Mama carried water from the pot and poured it on Helen. "Stupid girl, a simple thing you can't even do. Now you are cooking without meat. I don't blame you. I blame Henry, my son, for marrying you. There is nothing good about you. I wonder what he sees in you." Helen, with tears in her eyes, asked her mother-in-law, "Mama, what have I ever done to you to deserve all of this? I have only been a nice daughter-in-law to you. What do I need to do to make you happy?" Mama responded, "The only thing you have ever done to me is coming from a poor family. I wanted my son to marry Melody, the rich man's daughter, but you came with your poor and smelly self into my son's life, and now he didn't marry Melody. Do you know the connection I would have gotten from my family if that marriage was possible?" Helen pleaded with her mother-in-law, "But Mama, I know my family is poor, but I am a good person and I promise to behave well." But Mama was not listening to Helen at all. One day, something happened that changed everything. Helen was in the garden with her children, watching them play. Little Toba, her oldest son, ran inside to get his toy and overheard Mama talking on the phone. "I don't know why Henry is so blind," she said angrily. "This girl is nothing but a gold digger. I will never accept her, and I will make sure she knows her place." Toba didn't understand everything, but he knew the grandma was talking about his mom. He went outside and whispered to Helen, "Mommy, Grandma is saying something about you on the phone. Some bad things, Mommy." Helen's eyes filled with tears. She hugged Toba and tried to act like everything was okay, but inside she was hurting. That night, as Henry was putting the children to bed, Helen sat in the living room, thinking about all the things she has been maltreated. She realized that if she didn't speak up, things would never change. She loved Henry, but she also loved herself and her children, and she knew they deserved better. When Henry came downstairs, Helen took a deep breath. "Henry, we need to talk," she said. Her voice trembled. She told him everything, how Mama treated her and when he was away, the hurtful things she said, and how she had refused to help when Helen was in labor. Henry was stunned. He had no idea that his mother was treating Helen this way. "I never wanted to tell you," Helen said, but tears streaming down her face. "But I can't keep living like this. I love you and our children, but I also need to feel safe and respected in my own home." Henry was heartbroken. He couldn't believe his mother could be so cruel to the woman he loved. He immediately went to talk to Mama, hoping to understand what he had been so unkind. Mama tried to defend herself, saying that she only wanted the best for her son and that Helen was not good enough for him. But Henry was firm. "Helen is my wife and the mother of my children," he said. "She deserves respect. If you can't treat her with kindness, then you need to find somewhere else." Mama was shocked. She never expected Henry to stand up to her, but Henry was determined to protect his family. Henry said to his mother, "Mama, we have a lot of estates and duplexes. Please pick one of them and live on your own." And Mama said, "Henry, so you are sending me out of your house because of this poor thing? I will leave, no problem, but don't worry, I will come back." Mama packed her luggage and left for one of the duplexes in their estate. Following months, after Mama's dispatches were filled with both healing and tension, Henry and Helen grew closer as a couple, working together to build their emotional connection. The absence of Mama's remark gave Helen the breathing space she needed to rediscover, focus on her children, her career and her marriage. Henry too became more attentive to her needs and feelings, something he hadn't fully realized he was neglected before. One late afternoon, Henry received a call from his mother, telling him that she was coming to the house. She didn't sound angry or defensive, as she usually did, but rather resigned. Henry hesitated for a moment, sensing that this was a crucial moment for their family. He called Helen into the room and told her what Mama had said. Helen, still unsure of what to expect, agreed to face her mother-in-law once again. When Mama arrived, she was different. Gone was the pride, imposture figure who had once made Helen feel inferior. She came with her head down, her eyes softened, and her demeanor humbled. The air in the house grew tense as Helen stood in the living room, unsure of how to react. Henry was the first to speak, his voice firm yet gentle. "Mama, Helen and I have talked. We have walked through a lot of things, but I need you to hear her too. Hurt her, and I need you to apologize, not just for my sake, but for the sake of our family." Mama nodded slowly. Her lips trembled. She glanced at Helen, her eyes filled with regret. Struggling to find the right word, she said, "I was wrong. I treated you like an outsider, and I let my pride and expectation cloud my judgment. You never deserved the way I treated you." Helen could not see the sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't sure if she could forgive the past so easily. But in that moment, she realized that forgiveness was not for Mama. It was for herself and the peace of the family. She took a deep breath and spoke softly. Her voice trembled with emotion. "I never wanted things to be like this between us, Mama," Helen said. "I tried so hard to make you see that I love Henry and our children, but I felt like I was never enough for you, no matter what I did." Mama's eyes welled up with tears. "I'm sorry, Helen. I see that now. I thought I was doing what was best for my son, but I was wrong. I wanted him to have the best, and I never realized that you were exactly the best for him. I can't change the past, but I want to be a better mother and grandmother." next few months, things between Helen and Mama began to change, though it wasn't an easy process. The wounds of the past were not forgotten, but they started to heal. Mama took small steps towards building a more respectful relationship. She slowly became more involved in her grandchildren's life, offering help and guidance without the harshness she once carried. She even started cooking Helen's favorite dish and giving her little compliments when she saw her working hard. There were still moments of tension, especially when Henry wasn't around, but Helen and Mama had learned to communicate better. Helen learned to accept herself with kindness, and Mama learned to respect her boundaries. Henry remained the glue that held everything together, making sure that his wife and mother knew where his loyalty lay. One evening, as they sat down for a family dinner, Mama looked at Helen with a soft smile and said, "You have done well, Helen, and I'm proud of you. You are a strong woman. I can see why my son loves you." Helen smiled in return, her heart finally at ease. "Thank you, Mama. I hope we can continue to learn from each other." Henry was watching the exchange and felt a sense of relief. His family was healing, and he was grateful that Helen had the strength to forgive and move forward. He had learned too how to be a better husband, one who understands the value of communication and standing by his wife no matter the cost. One afternoon, as Helen sat in the garden watching her children play, pain of the past still lingered, but it was no longer a source of bitterness. Instead, it had become a lesson in strength, communication, and the power of standing up for oneself. Mama came to sit beside her, her eyes kind but thoughtful. "You know," she said, "when I look at you now, I see a woman who is strong, silent, and full of love. I have learned so much from you." Helen smiled warmly, grateful for the journey they have been. "And I have learned from you too, Mama. Sometimes it takes time to see things clearly." Henry joined them in the garden, wrapping his arm around Helen. "And I am glad you two are finally at peace," he said. "This is what family would be, and they all live happily ever after." The story of Helen and her mother-in-law teaches us the importance of communication and standing up for herself. Love should never be one-sided, and respect is a two-way street. It's important to speak out when you are being maltreated and to create healthy boundaries even with family. True love supports, protects, and uplifts, and no one will ever make you feel less than you are. Helen's journey with her mother-in-law teaches us that healing takes time, and forgiveness, though difficulties can be a part of freedom, it is not about forgetting the past, but about learning from it and going beyond it. Respect, communication, and boundaries are keys to any relationship, even within families. True love, the kind that supports and uplifts, will always find a way to heal old wounds and create a future that is stronger than the past. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope you were entertained, and I hope you got some insightful information. Please, if you haven't subscribed, kindly click on the subscription button and turn on notifications for more interesting stories like this. You will be the first to get them. Thanks for watching.